Listen, man. Listen, man. Listen, man. Listen. We talking about.
Hey, it's Matthew Harvey here with the 12 o'clock siren coming to you live on the southeast corner of the square. On my left is James Hartley.
Present and accounted for with Jason Fuller on my left.
What's up, fellas? Today's a special day.
It's a very special day. What we have today?
We got some special guests.
Today
is
plural.
Today
plural.
is yeah. We do
a first ever plural special guest.
This is the first time we've had 5 folks.
Yep.
On the siren.
It's a little awkward.
5 guys and 4 mics.
Today is the birthday of Leonard, Texas's favorite son, Garrett Scott Todd.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I don't know that it's deserved, but I do appreciate it.
And our guest of the week, arguably most requested guest ever, Mr. Arvis Buchanan.
What do you say there, Arvis?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
We've had a lot of people asking for you, and we finally got you in here.
Had requests, and you're going to have me on anyways.
Yeah.
So you have a long tenure here in Leonard, Texas, longtime resident, business owner, amongst other things. How did you get here? Where do you come from? Tell us a little bit.
Okay, I was born and raised in McKinney. Lived there until I was 30 years old. Went to college out at Decatur Baptist College, which was now Dallas Baptist. Did not graduate. Came back home. Went to work for Texas Power and Light in their data processing department.
I also did not graduate from Dallas Baptist University, just so you know. Yeah.
But anyway, I had an opportunity in 1959 to go into the grocery business with my brother. My brother was he was selling was traveling salesman, which was pretty big at that time for a meat packing company. And
yes, sir.
We had an opportunity to buy the store there in McKinney from a couple that had no children. So in 1959, we bought the store, which was the longest continuous running grocery store in McKinney at that time.
Wow.
It was Pratt's, it was Kenyon's, it was Massey, and then it was B&B Food. We named it B&B Food in 1959.
Where was it located?
Okay. It was on what we knew as old-timers in McKinney, the jockey lot. If you know anything about McKinney, Highway 5 runs through downtown.
Yes, sir.
And there is a water tower there right downtown. The only of 2 water towers that are visible. I'm certain there's more now, but at that time there was only 2.
Sure.
We were right under that water tower on the corner of Chestnut and Binge. And we ran that store until 1959 to 1973. We did not own the property, and that was the property that was bought by the county. And the first courthouse, after it moved off of the square, was there.
Yeah, the one they tore down recently.
Right. They just now tore it down and made
parking garage and apartments, I believe.
Apartments and garage.
Yeah, mixed use.
Yeah.
Now, when you opened B&B there, what was the population like in McKinney?
15,000, roughly.
So it was a fairly large town then.
Centrally located between the square and 75, pretty much.
Yeah, the last street going west was Wattle Street, which is about 3 or 4 blocks before you get to the new 75. I go back a long way. I can remember when 75 come across the square, it was Tennessee Street.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Then the new moved to Highway 5, McDonald Street, then out on the highway, out on the big 75 that goes around.
Sure.
But anyway, in 1969, I was leading the singing for the Baptist church here. My wife was an accomplished pianist and taught music, had an opportunity to come up here and lead the singing, and so just in conversation, I asked Mr. Hill, L.C. Hill, if he ever decided sometime to sell the store, I would be interested in making a bid on it. And so less than 3 weeks, he come to me and he said he had discussed it with his children, and he wanted to sell it. So
Yeah.
Good timing.
long story short, about 3 months, we moved to Leonard. June of 1969, took over the store, and the rest is history. We run the store on the square until about 82.
So you
And
you
that's
moved,
where the library currently is, if
Where the
I'm not
library
mistaken?
is now, yes.
Okay.
so you moved here right around the same time as Eugene.
I come in June, and he come in October.
Oh wow,
Cool.
Same year, 1969.
man, double whammy
Now,
there.
did you know anybody here? You had any connection
Well,
here,
yeah,
friends or relatives?
No, well, I had one of my dad's brothers raised his family here, Arvis Buchanan.
Okay.
And he had a daughter that still lived here. She worked for Gene and Ayers, Geraldine Ayers. I knew her and her daughter, but basically I'd never been to Leonard. There's no reason to come to Leonard unless you were just
Unless you were coming
unless
to
you were
Leonard.
coming to Leonard, and that's.
Well, 15,000 people when you opened the store in McKinney. I mean, what was Leonard then? Probably 800 or something. You know, it was probably a small town.
You know, I'd be afraid to say, but I can't remember. To me, Leonard is always. I've been pretty close to the same.
Yeah, I think
I can-
Leonard has maintained its population
Pretty
roughly
consistently.
for a pretty good while now.
I can remember Troy Berry making a statement. Of course, he did it in jest, but he always made a statement. He said, "I've run over more people in Leonard running from the law than live here now." But you know, like I said, I don't remember Leonard not being somewhere in a neighborhood of 2,000 people.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's
But
interesting.
that could be wrong. I don't know for sure.
Sure.
So, 1981, 82, we had an opportunity to buy the store on the square, on the Piggly Wiggly store out on the highway.
How long had that Piggly Wiggly been in town?
3 years.
Okay, so it was
Probably.
relatively new. Was that whole building relatively new? Did they put that
it
in?
was, they built it.
Okay.
John Harold Davis built it and run it for some short time. I purchased the store from Jerry Davis and Waylon Wilkins.
Okay.
I don't know how that was acquired by them. I don't know.
Garrett, you look like you have something to say.
I just was wondering how many Troy Berry references that has been on the 12 o'clock siren so far.
I think we're up to about 10.
Maybe.
Roughly.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all fairly entertaining,
I
aren't
hope
they?
we get up to 50.
Yeah, we might have more.
Yeah,
The night is young.
that's right.
We'll come back to Troy Berry.
Yeah.
So then the Piggly Wiggly was your competition at that time.
Right.
How
That's true.
how does that work with two grocery stores in town, with them being probably a pretty big name?
Well,
That was a chain.
Then there was three grocery stores on the square.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
Was,
Was there one out here, right in front of here, where we are right now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Rudy Rath had a store on on the northeast corner of the square, which is the real estate.
Okay.
He sold out to Lee Yeager. Lee Yeager moved the store down here and opened up a store, remodeled this building that you own,
Cool.
and ran it for some while, and it burned.
Yep.
Then
I'm
Evans,
familiar with those with the fire marks anyway.
Evans Grocery was on the west side of the square, and he sold out to Blanton Hancock and would Blanton run it for, I'm not sure, a few years. And then we owned the Hill Grocery. We bought the Hill Grocery in 1969. And then Bill Ross, Ferguson, Bill Ross, most everybody knew her as, married a man with a farmer here, an old-time family, Ferguson's, and they run a grocery store here and a market, a meat market. They killed and slaughtered meat, and they ran it, which was down just east of the Rudy Rath store.
Cool.
So, needless to say, there was a lot of, but that store out there was. These all were small stores. Mine was relatively small compared to the store out there. And to operate a store 15,000 square feet, it took a lot of volume.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And
sure.
That many little stores just wasn't
feasible. But even back then, there's about the same population, give or take, and a lot less Walmarts and big chain places. So I guess essentially we're located here in town would make sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people
I think
going to them.
I think back one I wanted to mention how many mom and pop operations there was in this town back then. It's tremendous. Cafes. There was a dry goods store here. There was a 5 and 10. There was 2 appliance stores, and a TV store.
Right.
So all of those have come and gone because of competition.
Yeah, sure. Well, and everything now being so internet driven with Amazon, you can get everything you need without leaving your house. I mean, we get food delivered to our house, now. It's ridiculous. But I do see kind of a some of that coming back though, especially if you go to like McKinney now, it tends to be more restaurant style, I guess. But there's a lot of little mom and pop cafes and things that are coming, but all the big box stores now, it's no longer.
There are no. I can remember when the independent grocery store was very big. Affiliated, big national operation for mom and pop for stores my side.
Sure,
but there are no more.
Right.
As they go, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated to hear the things that Leonard had. You drive by and you see the sign that says biggest little town in Texas, and you just think, oh, yeah, that's a slogan. But for the size of this town and the things that we've had here, it's
kind of holds up.
It's pretty interesting.
Sounds like it held up at some points. It ebbed and flowed.
Right.
For sure. And there was, at one point, it sounded pretty bustling, I would say.
Well, let's see, we had 3 grocery stores, had the Blue Moon Cafe, had Lily Deal's Cafe.
Lily Deal's?
Lily
like
Deal
that.
was on the the street going off of the square.
Huh.
Had Grill 69.
Yeah.
Had Downtown Cafe, which was was formerly the Blue Moon. Geraldine Williams ran it for many, many years. And those were good restaurants, good, just mom and pop, run by a family. But yeah, there was a Western Auto store here.
Oh yeah, I remember the Western Auto days.
Well, Yachty Albright had a store here. Barney Hudgens.
Yeah, could you expand on that a little?
Tell us a little bit about what Yachty sold in there, because we've heard mixed reports.
Mike Sutherland last week told us about going in there as a child, but he never had, I guess, an adult memory of.
What I've heard was there was a lot of junk and a lot of cats.
Well, he had cats that grew and born, raised, and died there in the store.
Probably never fed.
One funny thing about Yachty was he would gather those things up on Saturday night and take them to a sale somewhere and bring them back, put them in his store. But one time we heard a commotion going on the square, and we went over there, and he went home for lunch. And when he went home for lunch, he locked up and went to lunch and stayed for an hour and then come back. And he had locked up 2 ladies that come in there from Dallas. They couldn't get out. And needless to say, we couldn't get them out. So I'm not real sure. I think maybe we went and got Yachty and he come let them out. But that's quite a commotion for a little while.
I said, don't go to that Leonard town, man. Keep you.
Yachty was an eccentric. He extremely.
Oh, that's our first phone call.
Busy man. You can take that if you'd
you
like.
Take it. This is an open forum here.
Yeah, we can. We got a fill-in today.
Garrett, could you handle that call for Arvis?
Yeah.
I'll take this for you.
That's
Don't worry.
That's a no contact.
Thank you, Garrett.
He doesn't want Garrett to have access to his phone, I'm sure.
Then we had Thriving Bank, 1973. We were able to. I was on a group that bought the bank here in Leonard and brought it back home. It was predominantly owned by the Peterson family in Denison.
Ah.
So we were able to purchase that.
So were you on the board of the bank?
Right.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
a group that bought it out and brought the ownership, more than 50% of it back to Leonard.
Awesome.
Kept it till the 80s when I sold my portion. That's part of the assets that I used to buy the store out on the highway. But,
okay.
It was Leonard National Bank then, then became American Bank, and now it's
Sure.
I can remember being a small child and the Leonard National Bank having a get-together for all of the people that, their customers.
The patronage,
everything.
if you will.
Yes, and people had money in there, and they would cook hot dogs and things like that. And I can remember Arvis being out there cooking hot dogs, and also you had your little. It was almost like a train. It was pulled behind a lawnmower.
Yeah.
And
Did that
he
carry
would
on?
drive, He would drive kids around. It'd be almost
Did
like
that
a
carry
train.
on into the 90s?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
I've still got the train.
Cool.
It'll be in the
Parades and
parade
stuff.
this year.
Yeah. Is it always in the? I don't remember seeing it
No,
this year.
I haven't had it in there the last 2 or 3 years, but sort of revived some
I
interest.
just to not to be Debbie Downer here, but I heard about one of those that flipped, one of those long train things like that. I heard about it, just the way it was built or something. It flipped.
Oh,
They probably
goodness.
turned it super sharp.
Arvis, I'm not afraid. If you want me to ride in it in the picnic parade next year, I'll do it.
I
still-
totally-
I'll throw
I've
caution to the
I've
wind.
never
Me and
flipped, but,
James will get in it.
Very cool.
I've got to
James will have
really
to
be
get
careful
two.
because the last time I rode, I was
Easy.
coming west
It's because
on
you're
the
tall.
north side of the square, and
Yeah.
I got down about coming down the south side and looked back. My train was gone, and it had come off, and it
Oh no.
but it didn't flip.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I do remember that from being a kid. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I'll ride in that. I'll have my Sprites and everything.
So you would use that in parades and stuff.
Right.
Did you do it in the parking lot
legs
at
hanging
B&B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I remember that pretty well. Very cool.
That's funny. So tell us a little bit though. What's it like? So you were a board member on the bank and brought that. What does that process look like? I mean, did y'all just make an offer to the family, or?
Well, I'm not real sure. I was just invited to become
Gotcha.
a part of that group that bought out the bank, and Dr. Davis was a big bank, was a stockholder in the bank.
You knew Dr. Davis pretty well, huh?
Ray Murphy was yes. Ray Murphy was a stockholder, and Alwyn Golden was another stockholder, and we kept them, and we bought the stock that was out of town from the Peterson family mainly. I'm not sure that there weren't more, but
Sure.
that he was the big stockholder, and we kept. So we comprised those three that I just mentioned, and myself and my brother, and Roby and Billy, and Dan
Sure.
Jackson, and I don't know, there were others, but
It was a town affair then.
Right, it was a locally owned and operated bank until the 80s, early 80s.
And you said that you used the assets from the sale of your share of it.
I sold my shares,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yeah.
And used it to purchase the B&B out on the Piggly Wiggly out on the highway, and operated it until in 2000 my brother retired, and he has since passed, and I sold in 2000 to my nephew Mark. Y'all know Mark, and Ted,
Yep.
my son-in-law, and 2000 I sold and retired. And then they run it until they sold the assets to the Spring Market this past year.
Yep. So that was a really long running business too in Leonard.
Yeah, I was in the grocery business for 50 years. So.
How did you feel about that?
Oh,
Is that something that you had always known was inevitable?
that's the American way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
That's enterprise.
Sure.
You know,
It's a good way to look at it.
that's enterprise.
Nothing lasts forever, right?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
I'm sure you know how the town felt when B&B was no more.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've
And,
heard.
and I mean, I hear that, but still.
I don't think anybody holds anybody responsible. We just miss B&B. It was an institution here
Sure.
through most of my life.
Well, much like the pharmacy, a lot of us worked there. A lot of us had some good
Yeah.
times, and I mean, I patronized Spring Market when both were going, but I was a B&B person. Now I got to go to Trenton to get my meat.
Yeah.
Which
That's another thing that I think about, and I'm so proud of those kids that have put in Bluebonnet, because there's an industry right there now that I've seen to go from whenever I was a young man in the grocery business. Every town had a little meat market. I mean, had a little
Butcher shop.
slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse. And now, probably 90-something% of all the beef killed in the United States is done by two companies, probably IPP and XL.
right.
And those kids they're doing a great job.
They
and
are.
Now they're expanding into the retail side of it, to where I can be a part of it.
Sure.
I can't go there and have a beef slaughtered, but I can go there and buy steak. And I really admire the kids, and I'm hopeful that they're really successful.
Well, Hannah was on our show. Did you happen to
Absolutely.
hear that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And Hannah,
They've gotten all kinds of fringe publicity off of that
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
It's popped up in
we
about.
have too. That we both benefited from that. But
Yeah.
but to add to that, Hannah and her brother Ben, we're talking about Bluebonnet in Trenton. Their story is similar to yours and your brother's. They got together, had an idea.
Yeah.
Hannah's impressive. We haven't had Ben on yet, but Hannah
plan
knows
to.
her stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very
Hannah will
impressive.
do well,
She's
yeah.
very impressive. Both of them are. And then a good asset for them and for David. David Johnson has been an asset to them.
Sure.
It's been a marriage there that's been really
Mutually beneficial.
beneficial for both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Beneficial for both.
We had David Johnson on our podcast. Did you happen to?
Very dear friend of mine.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to talk to.
Very dear friend. He's a colorful guy.
Yeah.
Matthew's not going to let you go till you're all caught up on our
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, right. Just keep going.
How interested in jujitsu are you? We had my jujitsu professor. No, so the thing that I loved about my dad raises cattle, and the thing I loved about B&B is y'all had the meat market there, and now Bluebonnet is great. Matthew and I actually ate Bluebonnet steaks today.
Yeah, we did.
A Wagyu sirloin at lunch, but I missed that because you go to Spring Market or whatever, and no telling where that comes from, and you can definitely tell a subpar product versus something like Bluebonnet.
I wouldn't have a comment on that other than I know that we prided ourselves in having really good beef, and
Y'all did for sure.
but
Garrett's got a comment loaded.
They don't have butchers.
I know. That's what I'm
Whenever
saying.
you went to B&B Food,
They
they
had
cut
butchers.
their own meat.
Yeah.
Okay, not to down Spring Market, but they do not cut their own meat.
No,
It's
it comes from somewhere.
prepackaged.
Yeah.
Same as you go to Walmart, it's prepackaged.
Yeah.
They take it out of a box and they set it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Put that red dye on it.
there's a skill right there that's died somewhat. A butcher now in a retail store is not a butcher that I knew as a kid. They got in quarter beef, half beef, hanging beef,
Yes, sir.
and they cut it from scratch. And now you get block ready beef, and it's all cut in Kansas City or somewhere by XL and shipped to you in a cryback box, and you get the steaks are ready to put on the saw. And so there's a lot of technology that's cut some of the skills out
Sure.
in some of your industry.
Automating some of that. My grandfather was a butcher, and my dad has an older brother, and he taught my uncle. My grandfather taught my uncle how to be a butcher, and he taught my dad how to build fence. And you can tell, like, when it comes to butchering or building fence, which one knows what's going on. What do you got, Matthew?
I was going to say you mentioned your brother. You went into business with your brother, Garvis, right?
Right.
I'm not sure if I ever met him.
Maybe not. I don't know. I should know when he died. He died 10 years ago, probably 10 or 15
Okay.
years ago. He was He was 7 years my senior. He was 7 years older than I am. A lot of people thought we were twins because of our names.
That was gonna be my follow-up question.
We're not twins. He was 7 years older than I am. But he and I were extremely close, had a really good relationship. Most of our business life was in a partnership. We did incorporate the last few years, put the everything but the real estate into corporation. But I guess I told someone, and there was a lot of truth to that. You know, I never went home mad at Garvis. I guess it's because I always did what he told me to do.
Easy to keep a relationship good that way.
Yeah.
We had a good relationship.
I hope my wife doesn't hear that.
That's amazing. I have a brother that's 4 years younger, and I love him dearly. He's my best friend. I can't imagine owning a business together and for as long as you guys did, and that's impressive.
And him doing everything.
But
you tell
I
him
think
to.
you can
I know that would not happen.
There's got to be an understanding between the two of you that is not between anybody else. That you can, like you said, not go home mad necessarily. You know, you get them, I guess. Me and my brother could probably run a business if we wanted to.
You guys probably could. It's impressive though.
I think, but that's cool. It's neat that you get to do that, and you live next to each other too, right?
Yeah, we did. We still, in fact, my sister-in-law is still there, and we see after her, and she's our dear friend. And
I drive by your house every day. Yeah. Probably see my Jeep drive by.
Too fast.
Probably. Yeah, swerving.
Throwing rock dust up all over the place. Way to go, Matthew.
Not in front of their house.
Arvis is a Jeep guy too.
They've got that black top.
Yeah.
You got that black top in front of your house.
One that needs washing.
Well, you're lucky you don't have to go further down that road because it'll rattle your teeth out. That road has actually it has turned my blinkers on. It's turned my windshield wipers on. It's rattled things off the dash.
It's a little washboardy.
It's bad. They just fixed that though. So you guys ran it both since was it you said 69?
The store here.
Yeah.
Since 69. Yes.
Yeah.
We went in business in 59.
Okay.
And run it until 73 when we closed the store, and he moved to Leonard in 73. I come in 69 and run it for 3 years, approximately 4 years, by myself over here. And then he came, closed the store there in McKinney, and due to the real estate problem, didn't have the store sold to the county. And he moved over here, and we ran this store then, and then we were able to move on the highway and expand.
Yeah. So what are your roles day to day? One guy's the money man, one guy's the order man. How's that work?
I don't know. I think I'm certain that we had delegated jobs, but
just whatever needed doing.
You let that, yeah.
I did what was needed, and he did what was needed, and if we did share the opening up, he would open, I would close. I would open, he would close, and so we were able to do that.
Was Garvis your only sibling?
No, I had three older sisters.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we never had any business dealings together.
I see.
But then Mark and Ted had a partnership and ownership in the corporation for several years. And as far as I know, they were quite congenial. I don't think it probably wasn't the
They seem to work together pretty well too.
That ours was, but that'd be natural, you know.
Sure. Yeah, I guess when I came to work for B&B, I think you had probably already retired because I think I started in late 2000.
Well, yeah, because I quit in 2000.
Yeah.
I retired in 2000.
Just missed you.
Yeah, I think when I worked there, it was 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there. You guys still would show up occasionally, but it was mostly Mark and Ted and Glenn at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to be proud of this or want me to say it, but Arvis did hire me.
That's true.
Arvis is the guy that hired me at B&B Food. Which,
Personally?
Lasted for 5 years.
Personally,
a 5-year relationship there at B&B Food. And it was a blast. It really was. And taught me a lot about, working hard and being responsible and everything like that.
Well, let me ask you a question,
Arvis is
Garrett.
who gave me that job.
What was your favorite role? I have a favorite role at B&B. What was your favorite role?
Oh, gosh.
Talking.
I was really good at it.
Yeah.
Talking, that is. As far as working at B&B, what my favorite thing was that I did, I loved stocking the aisle with the fabric softener.
Right. Okay.
It was easy to stock and it smelled good.
Lightweight.
And everything like that.
I worked up there with Glenn, and he would occasionally let me help him do the produce. And then when he was out, I would do the produce, and that was my favorite thing. I love doing the produce.
Right. Yeah, same thing. I mean, that was fun. I think both of us kind of shared that. Whenever if Glenn Simmons was gone on a Saturday, he would tell somebody,
take care of this produce.
And I was able to do that a time or two as well, and that was fun. B&B was a great learning experience. You got to do a lot of things. I was lucky enough to get to work in the meat market with Brad Whitworth and Charles Donahue, and wrap meat there, and that was what we called it, the meat group.
I just got yelled at by Ted a lot, really. That was my job at B&B.
Getting yelled at by Ted.
Yep.
I never worked there, but there was somewhat of a B&B clique at school.
It was a great learning
the employee
experience.
clique.
It really
That
was.
clique was the people who could tie the apron behind your back.
Yeah.
The guys that worked at B&B before me, after me, it's like a fraternity. I mean, you share memories from that place that a lot of people aren't privy to.
Break room. There were things done in there that probably could have got people fired.
I'm not
just
going to
letting
get
you know.
into.
I'm certain of it. I think about the grocery businesses. The
It's like the restaurant business.
The technology change that I saw as a grocerman, and I think about my life has just been a whiff, but I can remember when we marked everything with a grease pen.
Oh yeah.
You guys may be too young to know what a grease pen is, but it was. And then we come to the little paper stamps where we stamped everything, a price on it, and then technology come to where we put. We were not going to mark them, and we were going to put everything UPC codes on everything. And I said, "Man, there's no way that this will not work."
Well, I think a good change at the times illustration there is when I was a kid, I had a grocery store set, a little play set with like a register, a couple plastic produce pieces. Well, I would take the pieces and swipe them. I wouldn't enter the price in manually. I'd just swipe it across the non-existing laser
scanner there.
Just scanning the UPC.
Yeah, I think your industry probably saw a lot of the same changes that Eugene's did in the pharmacy.
I'm certain, yeah.
And a lot of parallels there. That they have found a way to make businesses run now.
My daughter left. The youngest one left and went to A&M, and she went to work for a store down there that was a little farther along in their technology than we were. And she called me one day and she said, "Daddy," said, we scan everything's scanned, nothing's marked. The register talks to them, tells them thank you, come back, gives them their change. Said an ape could run a grocery store down here.
That's funny. But it's getting to be about that way, though. People having to count change. Yeah. I've seen some people suffer through it.
That was my pet peeve. I suffered with that. I just could not bear to see a kid that could not make change.
Yeah.
Even though the register made change for them, I think that was
count your dimes and nickels, kid.
Exactly
It's simple math.
That's exactly right.
I worked at the Quick Check for 4 years in Celeste, and it bothers me every time you hand somebody change or cash and they can't do it.
Yeah, might take me a little bit longer, but I can get it done. So.
You have any employees that might stick out over that long run?
Oh yeah, I think of Mary Ruth Edwards, Geraldine Treadway,
Garrett Todd.
Let's not bring him up.
Yeah.
Vonda Golden.
I wonder who the longest.
Glenn Simmons. There's many.
Yeah, Brad probably.
Yeah, longest running.
Gerald West, his father, Howard West, was an old time employee. But there's more. I hate that I don't remember some
Sure.
of them, but
I know Miss Donna Rushing was up there when it closed.
Donna was never an employee of mine. She went to work for the boys. But
Right afterwards.
Yeah, she was super asset to the boys. Yeah,
She was always behind the little
run the front end.
Yeah.
Donna was a lot of fun to work with. I went to work for Arvis, and then Arvis retired. And then, as he just said, Donna came along afterwards, and Donna, she was so sweet and so trusting, and that was her downfall with those of us that worked up there. And when on cold nights, she would always park her Suburban out there close to the highway. She came to work at around 3 p.m.
Right.
And it was usually full. The parking lot was full at that time. And then you getting close to 8 o'clock when the store was going to close, and, well, there were a couple of more parking spots open, and she would want for us to move her vehicle closer. Well, I would take her keys out of her purse, and I would move her vehicle around back. And I'm sure Arvis is cringing right now to hear me say that, but she'd walk outside at 8 o'clock and be looking for that white Suburban, and there's no telling where it would be.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, am I remembering this right? There was also a incinerator, right? The box.
There was.
incinerator?
Well, there
Yeah.
was
Before
initially.
We did away with that and put in a
We had the crusher,
pressure.
Yeah.
the box crusher,
Yeah.
which you also did not want to mess with.
No.
That was a lot of fun, getting those bales out of that box crusher once they put in the crusher and got rid of the incinerator.
But I feel like the incinerator was there during my time.
the incinerator was there
Yeah.
while I was there, so it might have been because I started a little bit before you.
I feel
So
like
it
I burned
probably
some boxes.
was. It was probably after you started whenever they changed it out.
Yeah.
Talking about employees, Jerlene Owenby, Jerlene Treadway, most of the people in this town would know, worked for me for many years, and she eventually, she's been dead 2 or 3 years, but she was in a nursing home with my first wife. My wife had dementia, and she was there in the nursing home, and I'd always go by and see her, and she had to have a hug, and she called me one day, and she said, "I want to see you," and so I went by, and she hadn't worked for me in 20-something years. It's been
Sure.
a good time. And she said, "Arvis," said, I just couldn't sleep last night. And I said, "What's wrong, Jerlene?" And she said, "Well, I owe you some money." And I said, "What do you mean, Jerlene?" And she said, "Well, do you remember when you left me to close up when you went to the ball game one night, to a football game?" And I said, "Jerlene, I don't." She said, "Well, I do." And she said, "I went back and turned the wrong lights off, and I turned the lights off to the ice cream freezer, and we lost a lot of ice cream, and I want to pay you for it." Can you imagine somebody remembering that long? And I
Oh,
said,
man.
"Well, Jerlene, let's just let's consider it paid, would
Yeah.
you?"
We'll write that off as a business loss. there.
Geraldine was an extremely sweet lady. I love to go by and visit
But
with
those-
Geraldine Owenby.
Those are
I
some of the
did.
kind of employees I had.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a confession like that one time. You remember we went and had Matthew, you and I went to lunch with the owner of the tavern,
Yeah.
and
The Frisco bar.
yeah, we went to the Frisco bar, but he had owned the tavern in Denton, the Fry Street Tavern, where we basically paid rent there
Yeah.
for years, and I'd had a few Sprites, and anyway, their shirts were out, and I was just handing shirts out, man.
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
You remember that? And then
Yeah.
like we met, and I said, "Man, I've got a confession to make.
Yeah.
I am not this person, but I think I gave away a lot of your shirts like several years ago." He goes, "Y'all were there enough that I think the tabs paid." So, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I'm embarrassed thinking about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
You had a lot of neighbors at the B&B, the little spots next door. The two little spots little businesses came and went.
A lot of them did.
I remember some video stores. I remember
There
Oh,
was a
yeah.
video store. There was a
Salon, maybe.
Movie time.
Yeah.
Jack,
Brash and sassy.
Yeah.
Jack Donald Ross, his wife, had a restaurant there where the bookkeeper is now for several years.
Okay. What was the restaurant?
I don't know.
Uh-oh.
was
What
run-
kind of food they serve?
Just family food. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Joe Ross. Jack.
What's that?
You look like you're going to talk.
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember going up there and picking out movies on a Friday night. Get you good
Misty Lewis used to work there.
maybe good video game and
They brought in a lot of people.
It did. It did.
get you a video game and a slasher film.
Yeah,
I think there's-
forgot about that, but I do remember it.
I think there's still
Premier Video. Movie Time was the video store closest to the B&B entrance, and then down on the end where Lashley is now the accountant. That's where Premier Video was.
Okay.
Yeah, I
At the
remember
end.
some of that.
I think there's still a video store in Bonham, like an actual.
Family Video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On
They're
Center
still
Street.
building. They're still building new,
Very,
buildings
very odd.
in different towns around. Family Video.
They have to have them for people like me that can't use.
Well, just
can't
imagine
use the
that.
technology to order them on TV.
At one point, this town had 2 video stores.
Yeah. Hey, it's got two
You
dollar
know, I
stores
mean,
now.
we're saying 3, 4 grocery stores back in the 60s. We had 2 video stores as soon as like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
19? I don't know what that
Jeez.
was.
It is 2019 now, so it probably was 20 years ago. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
So you have
Where's
a
it
lot of
go?
you have a lot of land out there. You have a few acres, right?
Yes, 30 acres.
Yeah, you run any cattle or anything?
Have it leased.
Okay.
Bubba Damesworth has it leased.
Okay. I saw y'all got hit by high winds or something not long ago,
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Took part of the barn off for
Yeah.
Marie's barn.
Did you tear the barn down?
No, we tore the lean-to off of it though, and just it was open facing the west, and it had blown away 2 or 3 times. So
Yeah.
we did away with that portion.
Just a matter of time. So you said, go ahead. Oh, you said you're running cattle, or Damesworth is running cattle?
Robert. And
Cool. Are they going
I
to
mean-
the Blue Bonnet too?
I don't know. I really don't know what his operation is since his dad died. I don't. The boys are running it, and I don't know. About all he uses my land for is for a bull pen.
Ah, gotcha.
Keeps bulls there.
Mating
It is.
grounds.
Right. Till he gets ready to put them with his cattle.
Cool.
So we had talked about up to when you retired. Could you tell us what retirement has been like? What do you do to keep yourself busy these days?
Super good. Well,
Garrett
Started
taps
out-
him on the shoulder for those of you listening to
when-
the podcast.
when I first retired, I went to work for Mac Grimes in the helping him with the water company, fixing leaks, and enjoyed that. I read meters for him for a year or so, but since then now I just pretty well take care of my yard and do. My wife and I had I married this second wife she's a former barrel racer, so she loves horses. We bought horses and bought a 3-horse slant trailer and traveled a little bit and rode horses. And
Is that where you were this weekend? You say you were out of town this week?
But we've since sold the horses. Now we bought a side by side, so
Ah.
we're graduating down. So
She is a sweetheart too, by the way. Kay is a wonderful lady.
Well, is it true what they say? How to make a small fortune in horses is to start with a big one.
yeah,
I'm guessing that
There's a
side
lot
by
of-
side don't eat near as much as a horse. does.
no, it doesn't kick. Yeah.
Is
But,
that is that you two I see going down my dirt roads on the weekend?
No, we haven't been that
Okay.
way in a while. But you talking about with side by side?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been. I'm not guilty.
There's a few y'all out there.
Hoodlums out there
You know who you are.
raising it.
You mentioned Mac. Would you care to, just for our listeners, would you care to describe Mac? We've tried to, there's certain people in town that we would like to get a little bit of about them out
Yeah.
for people that may not have known him that well. But I know a lot of people personally that thought a lot of Mac.
Well, you're talking to another one. A dear friend of mine, Mac. Mac had to take him with a grain of salt. Mac would fire me every day. You know, he would. He'd tell me that I wasn't doing anything fast enough, didn't know what I was doing. He would fire me, and then he'd call me the next morning, and I'd say, Mac, you just fired me. And he'd say, well, I know, but said, you're a lot of company. He said, come on, you need to help. But Mac was a sweetheart of a guy, had a huge heart. One little story I'll tell you about Mac. We went to
Help him out there, Garrett.
Randolph. Went to Randolph to somebody had given Mac 7 or 8 geese, big, huge geese. So we got over there.
Seems like an odd gift.
Well, he had a pond and I had a pond, and he wanted to put some geese on the pond. So
Geese are kind of mean.
Yeah, they're ornery bird.
and so we got over there, and we had the guy had them up, and it's Lisa Brackett's father, and we had tow sacks for all of them, but 2. And Max said, "Oh, no problem." He said, "You carry one, you hold one under your arm, and I'll hold one." This is a true story. So we did. I got mine up, got him down between my legs, and we started back to town. And Mac had his under his arm and was driving, and just not a extended cab or anything, just a one cab. And got there about Randolph Church, First Baptist Church, Randolph there. Valley Creek Church, and Max got loose. And I let mine loose trying to get his under control, and he filled that thing up with feathers. Needless to say, we got pulled over and got him under control finally after he had scratched us and everything. Got back to town, and they lasted about a week. I was getting one a night, and we didn't have geese much longer than it took us to get back from Randolph with it. That's some of the story about Mac. I've hunted with him. I've worked with him. I've worked for him. We've had cattle together, and he's just a swell guy.
What's
a lot of honking going on, I can imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was. You just can't imagine. I mean, you couldn't see out or anything. The feathers and everything. I mean, they were those huge snow geese.
What kind of hunting did you do with him?
Deer hunting.
Yep.
We went to South Texas together a few times and deer hunted together. I hunted 34 years in South Texas.
Down around Brady or further?
We were 20 miles out of Brady. Hex, little community of Hex.
Whitetail capital of Texas.
Right. Yeah, had a good time. Roland Jacobs was on the lease with us. Billy Grimes was on the lease with us. Coy Flanagan, Lloyd Flanagan.
Those are big names in Leonard, Texas.
Lloyd Flanagan, Pete Flanagan, just on and on. Dan Jackson. And we live from year to year with anticipation of being able to go deer hunting.
Was opening weekend a big deal? Y'all
huge.
It's like a holiday.
Yeah, well, we hunt down in Central Texas. My family has some land down there. It's something we look forward to every year. You know, I'm not much of a deer hunter, but I love to go sit in the woods on opening weekend. You know, so
it's something therapeutic.
It is. I'm very excited. I grew up quail hunting, and that was what my dad and I preferred. And I got a dog for the first time in a long time, and we're going opening weekend, which is the weekend before deer season. We've got some property down around Brownwood.
Love to see a dog work.
Oh, I do too. There's nothing like it.
Nothing.
We always had English pointers, and I got an English pointer from a friend of ours who had to give up hunting, and it's my first lemon. We've always had black and whites or liver, and this is my first lemon. So he seems.
Do you have quail on the land down there now?
Yes, sir. We do.
That's something that just about went away for a little while.
It did. That's
They're coming back.
They are coming back. They've actually had some of the best years in the last 30 they've had. I know a guy that went out to the Matador Wildlife Refuge out in Paducah, and he limited out without a dog. He walked the roads.
Well, that's good to hear.
That is good to hear.
I seen a quail here recently. I was
crazy.
dove hunting out by Griff's old place down Savage Road.
I do.
And when I was pulling out of there, I seen a quail fly in front of my Jeep.
Which is crazy because, when they do improve pasture for cattle and stuff, that's kind of ruins their habitat. And it's interesting to see them back here. So I'm very excited.
Could you tell us what your preferred caliber for deer hunting is? Would you share that with us?
I don't know that I prefer it, but I hunted with 270.
270.
All my life. I have a 30-06, but I think that 270 is a little more versatile. But a lot of them a lot of people prefer the 243.
Oh yeah,
it's a good gun.
I hunt with a 6mm, which is basically a 243.
Yeah.
243 is great for kids and little ones.
Or
women.
36-year-old men who still like to
or
deer
James.
Hunt.
You're too big for that gun.
Well, it don't kick anymore. I've gained enough weight. Actually, 270. They did a Outdoor Life for one of those. It was voted best all around caliber. for big game hunting in North
Yeah.
America.
I got a 7mm mag that I took bear hunting in Alaska. And I said then, you know, if God had let me get home, I never would hunt anything that might eat me. So
Yeah.
I cared nothing to go back.
Did you get a bear?
Did you get a bear?
I did get a bear, but we had to go in some woods and hunt him. And Garrett Todd helped me, and it was just a little more excitement than I really cared for.
Hey, Jason and I chased a hog into some woods one time, and that was more excitement than I wanted. So
Yeah,
I can't imagine
totally
a bear.
different when it can hunt you back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a different ballpark. He killed him in a river or shot him in a river, and he ran up about a 30-foot embankment and into some trees, and Galen was with me, Garrett Todd. Y'all may know him from Trenton, and he said, "Arvis, we got to go hunt that bear. You hit him." And I said, "Well, I really, let's just play like we didn't hit him."
Yeah.
But he said, "No, we're going in." So he took his pistol 45, and I took my rifle, and luckily we did take but about 3 or 4 good steps into the woods, and there we saw him lying. But you know, I told him, I said, those are things that I'm not used to it. I don't care. I don't care to go back.
Don't want to step outside your lane too much.
Been there and done that.
Did you eat him?
Did one shot get him? Or
No, we didn't. That's another thing. When we went, we hunted them off of the inlets, little rivers that run down into the ocean.
Yes, sir.
And there was what they call scavenger salmon that come in there and they would be trying to go up those streams, and they would die. And
Right.
that's what the bear come down to feed on.
So it's rancid.
The locals up there told us that if you come in the spring, they're called berry bears. They fill
Eat
up-
those blueberries, yeah.
And they say that their meat is really good then, but we tried to eat some of this, and it just was not good
Nasty.
at all.
I'd had it once, and I wasn't a fan.
I have no doubt that if Arvis needed to wrestle that bear down with his bare hands, he could have done it. Don't let him be modest.
I might
Okay, I
have been
believe that
I
wholeheartedly.
believe that I could have outrun him, though.
Hey, you didn't need to outrun. You just need to outrun Galen.
That's right. And I told Galen that.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of hunting then, and what is one trip that stands out to you? Like, you know, if you could recreate it now, what would it be? Was it a
Are you
South
talking
Texas?
about a hunting trip?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the very first year that we went to South Texas, we had hunted out around Graham in that area, and we were able to go down to Brady, and we had our own house, and we had gone down in the summer and fixed it up. And deer we had a 50-acre wheat field on the right in our front yard. Big house that had air conditioning that the guy had raised his family, and then he had turned it over to a hunting lodge, and we were able to lease that, and we sit on that porch and watch 50, 60, 70 deer on that wheat field.
Wow.
And I thought, you know, this is
it. We've made it.
This is paradise.
With a
And I
bunch
was
of your
able to-
friends and-
I was able to hunt on that piece of land for 33 years.
Cool.
With my brother and with all these friends. And
Now, are there still Leonard people on that lease?
no, that lease sold. The landowner got up in age, and he felt the need to cut back, and so he gave some of it to his kids, and some of it he sold, and that's part of it that he sold. And we were down there 3 or 4 years ago, another friend of ours, and we drove out there, and it's been high fenced. And
Yeah.
a lot of South Texas now is when we first went down there 30-something years ago, there wasn't any land ever sold in South Texas. It's always handed down from generation to generation, and nobody ever cared to sell it. But now, South Texas is beginning to be a high fence country.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the high fence.
Well, I'm not. I think they're fencing in state property. Is what I really think.
Right. Sort of. And two, it's not as fun to go sit, and when they're like, all right, at 7:04, you know, spot, they've got a name for it.
Right.
He's going to walk out and he's going to
walk
eat.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
he does.
it's not hunting really, you know.
But
But I'm jealous of that experience. We had good deer where I'm from in Buffalo, Texas. But South Texas deer were always kind of what you were always chasing.
well, we didn't have any. We had very few trophies, but we went. You know, I went for the camaraderie,
Absolutely.
the camping, the fellowship. It was just super.
You mentioned your brother going on the hunts with you. Did you guys get to travel a lot, working together so closely? Did y'all get time off together to do things like that?
Yeah, we did. We made lots of conventions. We were members of affiliated foods for 20-something years, and they had lots of trips. That's a co-op wholesaler.
That was on the roof. It was a sign on the roof, wasn't it? Affiliated.
Mm-hmm. And we were able to. We attended. We got to go to Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
A couple of times, and we always going to Brownwood conventions and different places. So yeah, we got to travel quite a bit.
Why Brownwood?
To get over Hawaii.
I don't know. They just picked. They picked different locations in the state to have their. They had state conventions, and they always had what they call conventions and food shows.
Yeah.
They had big food shows, and Brownwood was a choice, I guess, because
Brownwood, Texas.
not Brownwood, Brownsville.
Brownsville.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, I was going to say.
thinking Brownsville, but
Brownsville.
where's Brownwood? I
Well,
don't know.
Brownwood is
Brownwood is Central Texas.
Yeah, my
Okay.
dad has where we're going to go quail hunt. It's really May, Texas, but it's just north of Brownwood.
I know where May is.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's Brownsville.
Okay, because I was
And it
thinking.
was because it's on the border, I guess, you know.
Sure, sure.
Back then, you could go over into Mexico
Oh yeah,
and shop and feel quite comfortable.
you could do that. I remember doing that in the late '90s with my family.
I remember doing it in 2000s and probably
I
shouldn't
actually
have.
went there in the late 90s with my aunt and uncle. And
Starting to get a little dicey though.
we
Wasn't
went across into Mexico, and I almost got kidnapped by a taxi driver.
it? See,
Probably
We-
sold
we
into
came
some
back-
kind of sex trafficking or something.
We were there for spring break, came back from Matamoros, and somebody's breaking into my truck as we walked up to it.
Yeah, it's a
did you
different
hit
world.
them?
No, they just ran off.
Different world.
Yeah.
So
we had another year we had a truck stolen down there. So don't go back.
Don't go back. No.
what about you have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, is that correct?
I do. I have four great grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren.
Wow.
And I guess 8, 9, 10 grandchildren now, counting my wife's grandchildren. So I have to think a minute.
Goodness.
She has about the same. She has 2 great grandchildren like myself, and
That probably occupies some of your time.
it does. It does. We spend a lot of Saturdays now attending football games.
Yeah, soccer games.
And we got to go Saturday to Courtney's twins soccer game. So
My nephew's on the same team. I watched them
With
this
the-
past
with the
Saturday.
girls?
Mm-hmm. They're cute.
They
They're
are.
tiny. All of them are tiny
But
little
it's
things.
a little bit grueling to watch.
It's like herding cats. They're just running all directions, and it's cute.
No technique.
Oh no, it's really cute.
Man, I always thought I've got 2 kids, and I always thought I can't wait until I can coach them in sports. I my dad was always my coach, and I love sports, and I don't have the patience with my own kids. I'm like, you are embarrassing me, and they're like 5. They got
Just hit
chocolate
the
on their
ball.
face, and yeah, I get too intense, so I have to step back and let other people do it. It's kind of it's a character flaw.
Odd question for you. Who's the most famous Arvis that you know?
What
I can't say that I know many Arvises, and I figured you'd be the best person to ask.
That's a good question. I've never. My mother told me that I was named after an Arvis Mays in Melissa, and I never got to meet him. But along about, I don't know, sometime since I've been over here, we were in the store out there, and somebody come walking in the store and wanted to know, walked up to the front and wanted to know if there was an Arvis here, and they directed him to me, and he shook his hand out and he said, "I'm Arvis Cunningham," and
Get out of here.
with my to the best of my knowledge, that's the only 2 Arvises I've ever met. So I guess I'm the most famous. one of them.
That's cool. There you go. I'll take that.
Well, that's
a
two
good answer.
Arvises. I've only heard of one Garvis.
That's true. Well, your answer could have been I was just named something that rhymed with Garvis.
Yeah.
No, Garvis was
So Garvis-
Garvis was named after somebody totally. His
Okay.
name was Garvis Glenn, and mine was Arvis Riley. So I don't know why Mother named us that way. We fought that for many years.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
The African American ladies out at the store would always come in. Of course, they knew me for 3 years more than they did Garvis, and so they referred to me as Mr. Arvis and Mr. Arvis's brother. So he was never Mr. Garvis, you know.
Little B.
Big B and Little B.
Little
yeah.
B.
Yeah.
One of the first things I remember about coming here, my parents found out about Arvis and Garvis that owned the B&B in town, and of course those two names stuck in my head. But they thought it was the coolest thing that it was, two brothers rhyming names, owned the local grocery store. That was one of the things that sold them on the small town thing.
I love your mom.
They said hi, by the way.
She's been an inspiration to me. She's been taking care of me twice at the hospital for different things, and so I always lit up when I'd see Denise there.
Yeah.
To take care of me.
Yeah, she made sure to say hi.
Sweetheart.
She's since retired.
Yeah, you told me
She's not working
I'm
anymore.
glad for her. But she'll be missed over there.
Yep. Thank you very much. This is a part of the show where we pull some questions out of the jar.
Okay.
And just have you answer some questions. We've also got another one we'd like to introduce where we just throw some names out there at you.
Yeah,
I think we're going to do that one first.
Yeah, if you want, we'll do the random questions. And I noticed you brought some notes. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't remember anything other than I don't know where you kids are old enough to remember that we used to have two doctors in town, Dr. Davis and Dr. Vanscoit.
Yep.
Do any of you remember them?
Vaguely, we have. I tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna do these random questions here, James and I, and then I'm gonna give my microphone to Garrett, and he's gonna throw some names at you, and you just
okay.
You tell us what those names mean to you.
Okay.
But first, we'll get these questions out of the way.
All right, so this is the first time I've asked this question. This is a weird one, but I've got an answer for it, so I can help you out if you need it. If there was an Olympic, if there was an Olympics for everyday activities, what activity would you have a good chance at winning the gold medal for? I think making coffee for me. I'm really good at that. Sleepy, It's a random question.
Garrett might be able to answer that question.
Why don't we let both these guys answer?
Yeah,
these?
Garrett. What about you, Garrett?
I'm going to let Arvis answer first. Go ahead, Olympian.
I don't know. I think drinking coffee.
Okay, drink. Dang, I should have went with that because I'm better at that than making.
What about you, Garrett?
Disappointing his friends and family.
I've got a boss, and his name is Rick Tidwell. He's superintendent at Bland ISD, and he told me yesterday that I was a failure at life. I've always been a failure, and I'll always be a failure. The reason why he said that is because I had to go take a bus driving test yesterday, and I failed my air brakes.
That is the hardest portion of the test.
Yes, it is.
It is the hardest.
I could tell you about the slack adjuster and the push rod that goes into it, and it's self-adjusting. Okay, but I could not do that air brakes test. So, basically, this may seem like a cop-out, but I don't have anything else in my head right now. Disappointing people would basically be that.
I guessed it correctly.
Yeah, well, that is what he wrote down. That's what James wrote
down. Okay,
that's true.
I'm pretty positive Katie Todd is somewhere holding a thumbs up at the moment.
Good one, guys. Yeah. Okay, Jason, you got one yet?
I do.
All right.
If you could, tell us about the best and the worst jobs you've ever had.
Outside of B&B.
Sure.
Because we all know.
When do you get into your jobs?
I guess the best job that I've had when I got out, when I come back from graduated from high school and went off to college and come back home and went to work for the Texas Power and Light in their data processing center, and it afforded me an opportunity when I was drafted into had it for 3 years before I went into the grocery business with my brother. Afforded me the opportunity to, when I was drafted into the Army, then I went to Fort Huachuca. And
left that part out.
when went out to Fort Huachuca, afforded the opportunity to work in a data processing center there, and had a wonderful 4 years. And a lot of my outfit went to Vietnam as 1960 wasn't a war, but they were going in police state. They were going as advisories.
Advisors.
And I missed having to go because I had that experience, and so I guess that would be one of the best jobs that I've had.
Fort Huachuca, that was Arizona, right?
Right.
I think now it's the Army, intelligence, where they teach all the intelligence.
It's right, right. And but it's an old cavalry outpost. It's been there for
long time,
100 years, and so we had lots of. The worst job, I don't know. I haven't had many bad jobs. Max work was when I worked for him was hard work.
Well, if you're getting fired every day, then I mean that's got to do something to your nerves, right?
We'll accept that. Accept that.
What about you, Garrett?
Are you asking me what my best and worst job was?
Yep.
Oh, good Lord. I don't know. I love
you're
working.
gonna make somebody mad, Mr. Kegans or Mr. Buchanan here.
To be honest with you, I have so many great memories working at B&B, and I have so many great memories working at the pharmacy.
Sure.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Both those jobs were perfect for me at the time. B&B was great whenever I was going through high school, and the pharmacy, working for Eugene, whenever I was going through college, was great.
Okay,
and,
so top of best.
You already dissed your superintendent.
As far as worst, I'm not going to lie to you. Y'all remember whenever the
How about my clean?
Well, okay, now here Arvis is bringing
outside of that.
Arvis. I did coach at McLean, Texas, and I had a great team. But the administration at that school was not the best.
I didn't mean that as much as I did.
Oh, yes, you did.
Where it's, I was thinking more where it's at.
You know, Arvis was
right
the little
next to nowhere.
Arvis was the little kid right now throwing rocks at a beehive is what he's doing. Because of where anybody who's listening, just Google McLean, Texas, okay, and see where that's at. What I was going to say, as far as anybody would know, was I hated flagging at the Celeste / Merritt dirt track races.
I love that.
I hated that. I was not a fan, and I did
Badlands?
do that, and I did not like it.
Yeah, we all flagged. A whole bunch of us flagged out there. The dude paid well, paid in cash, and I always enjoyed it.
Not a fan.
Man, all right.
What you got, James?
Do you collect anything? Buffalo Head nickels?
Being in the grocery business, signage or
No,
maybe
I really
Coca-Cola.
don't. I always think about Ted, my son-in-law. He collected
Coins.
Hot Wheels
Oh,
and coins, and that was always sort of a waste of time for me. And no, I've never been a collector.
Yeah, I'm not much of one either.
I remember when I worked at B&B and the Hot Wheels would come in and Ted would be digging through them before anybody else
Get up
could.
early in the morning and be at Walmart when they opened up the boxes, and things. And it was just sort of absurd to me, and so I guess consequently I haven't been a collector.
All right, so that's a no. What do you got, Jason?
What about Garrett? What do you collect?
Oh, sorry, John Wayne movies.
Yeah, I started to say I remember
And embarrassing
John Wayne
experiences.
I got besides embarrassing experiences, which I have a plenty.
Yeah.
Anything that has to do with John Wayne or Western memorabilia. And I've been very lucky to have Arvis Buchanan in my life for all of it, the entirety. And his first wife, Jeanette, I can remember her going somewhere and seeing a piece of John Wayne memorabilia and picking it up and saying that's for Garrett. And, getting it over to my house, either through you or through my grandmother, Ruth. And, something has to do with John Wayne or anything like that, or
Sure.
Any sort of Western memorabilia. I always enjoy
That's cool.
having that in my possession.
Pilgrim.
I think I've contributed to your John Wayne collection also.
You have.
Shoot
And I
low,
do
boys.
appreciate
They're
it.
riding Shetland ponies.
All right, Jason, what you got?
Alrighty. If you could tell us your first memory of Leonard, Texas. This is one that's we call it random, but this one we like to ask all of our Leonard guests.
Well, the very first time I came to Leonard was to my uncle's funeral. Lum raised his family here. He was a Church of Christ preacher and also a barber on the north side of the square, and he sold insurance. And I remember coming to the Church of Christ church here to his funeral. And then the second time I came to Leonard was when they called me. I was leading the singing at a little church, little Baptist church in Greenville. My wife was pianist. I really got into music on my wife's coattail because she was an extremely accomplished musician, and I don't claim to be. But anyway, they called me, and we were leading the singing there in the Baptist church, and Artie Kent, some of you remember the Kents, and Artie called me and wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming. They were in need of a music director, and I said, well, I'll come up. And so we drove up 69 on a Sunday afternoon and rode around, and we told Artie we'd come and help him out for a little while. And 6 or 7 years later, I did resign from the music, doing music there at the church. And that's how I was instrumental in being able to purchase a store, and how I was very fortunate in being able to raise my family here. I count it an extreme blessing to be able to raise my family in Leonard. And I don't know of any other place on earth where I had rather have been able to raise my children than here.
Very cool.
We'll accept that too.
You're certainly well respected, well loved, and I haven't heard a negative word about you, except from Garrett. Might have said something.
No,
a little
don't
off
let
color.
them lie to you, Arvis.
Garrett, what's your first memory of Leonard, Texas?
To be 100% honest, my very first memory that I can, one of my very first memories that I can remember is I was a very small child, and we lived on College Street. No, I'm sorry, Houston Street is where we lived. And we actually, it's been remodeled, but it's where Brandon Dunman lives now.
Oh.
And there was a house next door to it, and my father, Scott Todd, he had got off of work and went to Dairy Queen and got some tacos.
Dairy Queen.
I just remembered my father just
Still using that
raising
same
Cain,
taco meat.
raising Cain about this. But J.D. Grounds, who happened to be my father's best friend and compadre for many, many years, lived right next door. We were right over there by the Texas Mexico Power Company substation. And anyway, my father got off of work, and he got those tacos, and they were really, really hot. And at that time, we did not have really, air conditioning like we do now. It was window units if you had it. He set them on the windowsill to cool, and J.D., his best friend and next-door neighbor's dog, ran over there and got on that windowsill and took them tacos and ate them. And that is, as far as me being cognizant and everything, I do remember my father saying words that aren't Christian about his best friend, our next door neighbor. So that's my first recollection.
Another story about Leonard was we were here before we moved, and one Sunday afternoon the church had a survey doing. We had to go around and find out, knock on doors and ask them their preference as far as their religion was concerned and things of that nature. And I was with Peggy Pancook and Artie Kent, and
I just accepted her Facebook request today.
Peggy Pancook is one of my favorite people on this earth.
Sorry to cut you off.
Anyway, she told me, said, if y'all will hurry up and get through with it. We were on one street. I don't remember when it was. We had this street to do, and said when we get through, we'll go to the Grill 69, and I will buy you a slice of buttermilk pie, Marty Rowland's buttermilk pie. And I remember that so vividly because probably the best pie I ever ate in my life, and getting to gum with those ladies.
Well, we got the last question here. So besides children and marriage and the things you're supposed to say, like your proudest moment, outside of those, what's your proudest moment?
We make you think around here, Arvis.
Yeah. Come with the hard-hitting questions.
I don't know. I think just being being blessed to be. I know it's redundant, but being able to be able to live in Leonard and to be able to be in my profession like I was with a brother that we were always we didn't always agree with one another, but we never I don't ever remember going home mad at him.
Sure.
And, we worked at getting along and our families getting along, and those are my.
That's
I guess I'm proud of that more than anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Garrett,
That's an accomplishment.
appearing on the 12 o'clock siren.
Oh,
Is that your proudest
goodness,
moment?
I mean, being invited to be here tonight. I mean, it's a gigantic honor. Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what. I mean, being a lifelong Leonard resident and having the majority of my family graduate from this high school, being able to live here and be friends with so many people, such as Arvis Buchanan.
Sure.
I mean, this guy means the world to me. Not only did he give me my first job, but he's an extremely good friend.
Sure.
A very close friend. I don't know, the people that you meet here and that you interact with and that come into contact and they have an impact on your life, and it means a lot. It means an awful lot to me, being able to have worked at the grocery store which serviced this community for so many years, and being able to work at the pharmacy which serviced and continues to service this community for so many years. It means a lot to me.
Sure.
And I'm proud to have. I'm not going to say I contributed because I do not know that the owners would say that it did, but to have been a part of it,
Well,
that means a lot to me.
You definitely contributed to the culture. All right.
Yep. Absolutely. We are moving on to the next little segment.
Yeah, I'm going to give my
Introduce it.
headphones and microphone to Garrett, and I'm going to let him bounce some names off of you, and then that'll probably wrap us up. Unless you
Okay.
had anything else you want to add, and feel free to, but I'm going to go ahead and give this to Garrett.
I appreciate that, Jason. I've got two names here that are fairly well known in Leonard lore, and I would like for you to give me anything you want to give me on these two names, Dr. Davis and the legendary Waylon Wilkins. Can you give us anything on those two names that would contribute
Well,
to the
Dr.
show?
Davis, you could go on for another 30 minutes on Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis was an old family doctor who I can always remember as a young man raising my family. I could diagnose my children's illness or my illness, and I could go up there, call, and Catherine would give me a shot for what I diagnosed it as and not even see the doctor. So, but I served as a board member on the bank with him. I had the opportunity to serve there with him. Give me a little funny story about Dr. Davis. Yachty Albright, before he passed away, he told Adeline Albright, his wife, he said, "Now, when I die, I want you to call Dr. Davis and have him come and don't have Richard Taylor," which was the undertaker. He said, "Don't have him pick me up for an hour to make sure that I'm dead." So, as is with a small town, stories get around real quick. So it got around all over town that Yachty had died, passed away, at home. He had been sick for quite some time. And so when I got off work about 6 o'clock, it had already begun to get dark. And I went up to Adeline's, and they lived up north of town there a couple of blocks. And I parked and walked up on the porch, and Adeline said, "Come in." And when I went in, Adeline and Dr. Davis were sitting in the front room with the lights out, and I said, hugged Adeline, and I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "Did Robert Yachty die?" And she said, "Yeah, he's back there," and pointed back there. And so I looked in, and he had the sheet covered. And Dr. Davis finally told me, he said, "Well," he said, "I need to tell you," he said, his request was that when I die, Adeline said, I want you to call Dr. Davis, but I don't want you to let him pick me up for an hour. And that's what he was doing. He was sitting there with Adeline, and they were spending the time for an hour until they could call Richard and pick him up. That's the kind of man he was. He was a man of his honor and very busy man, but he had time to spend an hour with Adeline before he picked up Yachty. So.
There's been a lot of stories about Dr. Davis around town, and
Dr. Davis had one other little story, was the fact that y'all remember Wayne London?
Yes.
You remember Wayne? Wayne worked for me up here, and one icy Saturday, he dropped some Cokes. They were glass back then, and he cut his hand real bad, the palm of his hand, took stitches. So I took him up to Dr. Davis, and we went in, and Dr. Davis said, "Oh, ho, ho," said, "Come on in," said, "I'm watching a ball game," but said, "We got to take care of this." So anyway, he sewed him up, and he took me and Wayne both to hold him on the table before he could sew him up, and we was taking him home after Dr. Davis had sewed him up, and he said, Mr. Buchanan said, if I get cut again, and said during a ball game, said, "Don't take me to Dr. Davis."
Dr. Davis is very well thought of, and like I said, a lot of stories around town about Dr. Davis. And of course, Wayland was a well-known businessman around town for many, many, many years. And I'm going to go ahead and tell a story real quick to kind of set the tone, and you follow it and tell us whatever story you want to tell. I don't know, around 15 years ago, I was sitting on the square at this very spot with another good friend of mine, Brad Lumpkins. And we were sitting here on Cowboys Corner, and Wayland was in a Ford Mustang, and he was riding around town, and he was kind of making a loop around town over and over and over and over again. Wayland Wilkins, that is. And he had his bright lights on. We had a new cop in town, and his last name was Pritchett. And he had not been in town very long. He did not know anyone. But, the police station was right down the road from here, and he kind of saw us sitting there, and he would pull up there and stop and talk to us every now and then. Well, he was talking to us, and like I said, Wayland was making the loop around town, and he had his bright lights on. And so anyway, finally, we saw him coming, this way towards the square from Highway 69. So he's coming up 78 this way, and bright lights were on. And finally, the new cop, Officer Pritchett, walked out in the square and kind of waved him over. And Wayland pulled over towards, the square here where we're sitting, basically, and rolled down his window. And Officer Pritchett said, "Turn your bright lights off. You've been driving around town all night long with your bright lights on." And Wayland looked away from Officer Pritchett, looked towards the windshield of his car, looked back at Officer Pritchett and said, "Put your damn sunglasses on."
Yeah.
And then he hit the gas and drove off.
I like it.
If that tells you anything about the legendary Wayland Wilkins, that's kind of the way he was. So, Arvis, do you have anything that you could let us know about Wayland Wilkins?
Well, Wayland was, like you say, he was one of a kind. I never, for the years that he was in the business there, I never shopped for a car because I was about halfway afraid of him. I didn't want to get on his bad side. I wasn't afraid of him, but just didn't want to get on his bad side. So I bought all my cars from him. But one time I dreaded to buy cars from him. I just could not. So I told him I wanted a Z71. I wanted a red, and so he said, "Well, we're going, I don't have one, but we'll go." They got one in Atoka. I said, "Wayland, I don't have time to go to Atoka." So anyway, we take off to Atoka.
It's a great quote, by the way.
So we get up there, and they didn't have what I wanted, and the guy told us we did. He said, "We can get you." Wayland said, "Well, I can get you one." So he was sitting in the office there, the guy that owned the Atoka Chevrolet house, and Garvis and I were just funching at the bits, needing to get back home, so one of us had to close, and it was getting late, and we went in our vehicle, Garvis and I's vehicle, and I kept telling Wayland, I said, "Wayland, we need to go, and he'd say, "Okay, in a minute." So finally, this went on for an hour, and I went to the door, and I said, Waylon, the bus is leaving. And so we went over and got in our car and waited another 5 minutes or so, and we left. And he beat us home. He bought a car and just beat us. So that's just the kind of guy Waylon was. He was his own. He rode his own boat. He didn't really care.
The next time Matthew asked me to come up and help or something, I'll say, Waylon, we don't have time to go to Atoka. All right.
And then sit around for the next 3 hours doing nothing.
Yeah.
Should have gone to Atoka.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's probably about it. We stayed over the time we told you. We said an hour. Is that okay?
I hope I haven't been.
We could have you for days if you'd sit up here and talk.
Would you be willing to come back at any point if we asked you to come back?
I would love to. I've
Great.
enjoyed this. I mean, I've dreaded it, but I've enjoyed it.
You dreaded it. Were you a little nervous?
No,
I'm
you just didn't want to come hang out with us.
I want to compliment you guys. I'm so proud that we have youth that are coming into our community and taking an interest, and it means so much to us old timers.
Oh, cool. Thank you
so much.
We
Thank you.
Well, that means even more to us.
It does. It really does.
we've had some. We've loved all of our guests, but there's been a few from Leonard that have gone. I'm speaking on behalf of James and Matthew, but yourself, Eugene, David Johnson, people like that, to come on here and just tell us what Leonard is to you guys goes really far in legitimizing what we're trying to do here, and I think.
Well, people are responding to it too. We're getting cool messages. Like we got a message from somebody who is tagged. And I was telling James last night, this lady, Cheryl Stanley, tagged a lady who Mike Sutherland talked about
On the
visiting
podcast.
here when he was 8 years old. And Cheryl tagged the lady that he was talking about probably 60, 70 years
and
later.
he couldn't recall the last name.
He didn't know who she was, but the lady was tagged on the Facebook
That's cool.
and she got to listen to it, and she wrote a message to Justin Horton, I believe.
She did, and she said that
after
was
seeing his sign for his decal for this podcast, he explained to her what it was. She went and listened. Cheryl told her that they talked about her, and she. Of course, she heard all kinds of things she hadn't thought about in years.
She confirmed that it was.
Yeah, and
it
was in fact her.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat. That 60 years later, you're making some
reconnections,
bizarre digital connection that otherwise would have not have been there. So we appreciate you coming on, and taking your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
we'll definitely have you back. So that's Mr. Arvis Buchanan. Thank you very much.
Stick around for the recap.
We will be doing a recap, so stick around. Thank you very much.